5 alarming signs that Putin is becoming the modern-day Hitler. Recently, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has launched an all-out, 1940s-style, peace-shattering war by invading Ukraine. His descent silencing tyranny at home and imperialist conquests abroad seem to invite Hitler comparisons. But how similar is he to the infamous Nazi leader? Let's examine the similarities, and differences, between the two. Here are the 5 signs that Putin is becoming the modern-day Hitler. Number 5. Putin and Hitler are both conquering European dictators. Let's get the obvious one out of the way. Nazi Führer Adolf Hitler. Hitler conquered Germany first, sent his Wehrmacht storming all over Europe, triggering the Second World War. He believed Germany had a right to rule the continent how it saw fit. Russian dictator Vladimir Putin hasn't taken as much territory, but he also believes Russia has a right to dominate its neighbors and is certainly doing a lot more invading than anyone else these days. In 2008 he seized Georgia, in the Caucasus. Then he went after Ukraine, swallowing up Crimea in the Black Sea and financing Russian separatists in Donbass, following Ukraine's pro-Western demonstrations in 2014, according to Foreign Policy. On February 24, 2022, his Russian army began a full-fledged invasion of Ukraine, seeking to topple its government. It's unlikely this conflict will result in World War II-scale genocides. But Putin's land grabs still constitute the first major interstate military conflict in Europe since the 40s. Number 4. They both abused democracy to seize power. In modern times, aspiring dictators often seize power by using the machinery of democracy against it, turning vibrant republics into illiberal one-party states. A decade of decadence and economic woes helped sweep Nazis into power. Germany Chancellor Hitler's first order of business? Criminalizing political opposition and amassing complete dictatorial power. Putin's rise was a bit less spectacular, but there are chilling parallels. Business Insider has the receipts on his infamous career in the Soviet KGB, and his budding political aspirations in 1991. Like Hitler, who was actually appointed to the chancellorship by President Hindenburg, who sought a bulwark against the surging Communist Party, Putin was appointed president of the Russian Federation by Boris Yeltsin, who feared criminal prosecution. Also like Hitler, Putin abused his newfound power to keep it illegally, and has been stuffing ballot boxes and silencing dissent ever since. Number 3. Putin and Hitler both used the same excuses to annex foreign territory. According to the BBC, Putin claims Ukraine has been mistreating ethnic Russians in the Donbass region, even going so far as to call it a genocide. A claim frustratingly undermined by a lack of any evidence whatsoever. Similarly, Hitler baselessly alleged supposed discrimination against ethnic Germans in Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland as a pretext for seizing that territory. Putin also fabricated stories of Ukrainian saboteurs sneaking across the border to attack Russia, which is strikingly similar to German claims that Polish nationals had attacked a radio broadcast station just before Germany invaded their country, according to History Hit. How convenient for warmongering dictators who were quite obviously seeking reasons to invade, and who'd already coincidentally assembled massive armies along the border. Number 2. Putin and Hitler both rebuilt their nations. Germany surrendered before it was invaded in the First World War. The humiliating terms of the Treaty of Versailles, to hyperinflation resulting from war reparations payments and, eventually, the Great Depression, the country was ripe to be taken over by violent extremists. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis won, and quickly became totalitarian rulers. Putin, too, came to power in a tumultuous time for Russia. Russia was now all by itself after the USSR's collapse, and trying to navigate a Western-style market economy and this whole democracy thing for the first time, after spending decades being told both concepts were evil. It didn't last. Rampant poverty, corruption, and an immature and unstable democracy, not to mention decades of propaganda under the Soviets, made people especially vulnerable to a strongman like Putin, who promised to restore the nation's dignity with strength. When he did take power, the Wall Street Journal says he rebuilt Russia's army into a powerful force and made the nation feared again. And number 1. Putin and Hitler are both willing to let their people suffer. By 1945, Hitler's situation had gone from desperate to hopeless. Nazi minister Albert Speer was told to lay waste to Germany's remaining infrastructure. This had two goals. 1, like any scorched earth policy, deny the use of such resources to the enemy. 2, to Speer's horror, punish the German people for losing the war. Putin isn't so fanatical, but he's still reckless and blinded by his own schemes. Sanctions have been slapped on Russia for years, as a result of wars and interference in, and cyber wars against, Western democracies. But his full-fledged invasion of Ukraine brought down the international hammer like never before. Fortune has the details on how familiar sanctions suddenly became devastating for a Russia that's increasingly, ruinously isolated from the global community and international financial systems. As is always the case, the rich are at fault, but it's the common folk who suffer. But while the extent of the punishment might have surprised Putin, he knew Russia would face consequences that would be felt by the poor at home. He went ahead with his plans anyway.